good, but they were good last year too. Steph with the air ball. Steph still hasn't scored.
Fewest points in a game in his career when he's played 30-plus minutes.
One loud tune there to the Dark Times Challenge.
So let's go ahead and dive right in. The other day on TNT, the Players Club edition, they were discussing some of the individual end of the year awards to be handed out, and the Defensive Player of the Year award came up. Let's go ahead and check it out.
It's usually a big award.
Typically.
And I don't think that voters are going to go against that. I think it's between Evan Mobley and Draymond Green.
And as good as Evan Mobley and Draymond Green have been defensively, neither one of those guys is chasing around Trae Young or Stephen Curry all night fighting through screens. They're primarily on the back end, helping out and anchoring the defense. Not that that's not important, but in today's NBA, I think they got it backwards. I don't think the Defensive Player of the Year should be primarily a big man's award.
Green. Tip in drive, handed O'Neal, picked up by Reeves. Knocked away with a great defensive play by Thompson.
I'm telling you,
wow,
he does everything.
I think if we're talking about 80s, 90s, maybe even early 2000s basketball, then we're talking about the premier big man that has to go up against Shaquille O'Neal, and Hakeem Olajuwon, a Patrick Ewing, a David Robinson, a Charles Barkley, Karl Malone. You're talking about the list goes on of premier players that bigs had to go up against. And so if you're Draymond Green or an Evan Mobley, you're talking about maybe 3 or 4 premier big men in the league. You got to go up against a Joker. You got to go up against a Wemby. And what are you doing against those guys? What are you doing against those few premier big men when you do go up against them? Not too much. Nobody's shutting down Joker. Nobody's shutting down Wemby. I haven't seen it yet, unless they just have an off night. But for the most part, they're doing what they want to do. There's no Dwight Howards out there.
14, Jokic, and Howard meets him at the rim.
And so you're really talking about only really having to face a few big men throughout the year. And so what are you doing the rest of the year? You're roaming around, helping out on defense.
And those two, Cleveland having the second defensive efficiency in the league, and the Cleveland Cavaliers taking a huge leap this year as a result of Mobley and a healthy Mobley. Talk about a rim protector. You talk about somebody that has switchability, that's able to guard a guard probably 1 through 5 in this league.
They say this guy can guard 1 through 5, that guy can guard 1 through 5, when realistically, there's probably really only 1 or maybe 2 players in the NBA right now currently that can legit guard 1 through 5. And we've seen them do it, and that's Thompson.
Thompson is holding all-star guards just 40.7% shooting and only 25.6% from 3. I've got to say, look, he's the best perimeter defender in the NBA. Not later, not maybe in a couple years. Thompson is the best perimeter defender in the NBA right now. He just clamped Steph Curry.
Where you can't hack him. You got to keep your discipline. And Thompson coming up with a steal on that inbound.
He did it to SGA the other night.
That's why you need Jay. Oh my goodness, there you go.
He did to Luka.
And Thompson keeps Luka in front of him, gets a hand up.
He held Luka to a very pedestrian evening in that game, and he's been doing it all season long. I think he is a leading candidate for Defensive Player of the Year.
And I would have to agree with that. I think Thompson done enough to be the 2025 Defensive Player of the Year, because we're talking about somebody, like I mentioned before, that actually has to guard 1 through 5.
Donovan Mitchell going to play through him.
16 rebounds for Thompson, tying the career.
Here, 10-3 run. Jerome back at.
Pulling here tonight for Shingo.
Oh, yeah, he's 7 of 8.
Blocked by Thompson.
Draymond Green has anchored that Golden State defense. And for Golden State to have a top 10 defensive efficiency, a lot of that has to do with Draymond. You talk about somebody right here that covers up ground, that is the quarterback behind a defense that really orchestrates plays like this on a regular basis, hustle plays, switchability.
We're talking about a player in Thompson that does all of that. And then on top of that, he's guarding the elite perimeter players in the NBA. But it seems like a lot of individuals within media want to go ahead and hand it over to Draymond Green, primarily because they probably feel like it's his last opportunity to win a Defensive Player of the Year and that he should have more.
But for him to be a player that only has one is crazy. So I'm going to take the Shaq approach and say it's between those two.
That's fine. Lou Dort, also a possibility. Dyson Daniels, and of course, Amen Thompson, who I feel like is going to be up for that award for years to come.
And so, as we all know, there's always going to be a little bit of politics when it comes to these awards. There's a lot of players that have come through the NBA that should have a lot more hardware. And there's a lot of players that have come within the NBA that should have a lot less hardware. But that's politics. Politics isn't everything. It is what it is. But you guys go ahead and chime in below. Let me know how y'all feel about this particular video. And as usual, peace and chaos.